RE/MAX Properties East. We want to take a
Susie, try it now.
I think we're rocking now, Bob. We're on. So welcome, everybody. Verl Workman here, CEO of Workman Success Systems, and welcome to our Wednesday's Flash Briefing. We have an amazing guest with us today, the one and only Bob Sokoler. Bob, welcome.
Wow. Thank you, Verl. The one and only. I love that.
One and only. I don't know any other Bob Sokoler. I don't know anyone that matches your energy, your enthusiasm, your experience, and your heart. And so that is a one and only.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Well, we're excited. As people are joining the Facebook Live right now, I just want to encourage everybody to say hello, where you're from, and let Bob know that you're here. We'll be watching and monitoring questions. If you have questions during the Facebook Live, we'll be happy to answer those as we get into a little bit about marketing. We're going to talk a lot about marketing and even more about video and how we're using video today to build one of the most successful teams in all of North America. So for those of you who don't know Bob, let me introduce Bob. Bob is not only a great friend of the Workman Success Systems family, but he's a RE/MAX team leader in Kentucky. Matter of fact, the #1 team in all of Kentucky for the last 7 years in a row. He's been not only a great real estate agent, but he has a history in video production, newscasting, and reporting. He's got 2 Emmy Awards, which is really cool. And it's really fun whenever I do anything on video, I always think in my mind, what would Bob do? How would Bob handle that differently? How do you make it better? What would Bob say? And so, Bob, you're constantly in my mind as I'm trying to get better and better at doing video and doing production. So thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Thanks. It's a pleasure. Yeah, my background's TV and then radio and then TV. So, yeah, I just, I don't know if you know this, but growing up in New York City, my dad did radio. And so every night he would say, okay, kids, my sister Pam and my brother Corey, I was the oldest. He'd say, okay, time to go to sleep, guys. And so we would get our cue. And then my mother would say, now you got to do it. Your dad told you to go to sleep. And so we would go to sleep and that would be it.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I tell my kids to go to sleep and they're like, not now, I'm busy. I'm busy playing Fortnite. Wait till my game's over. I'm in a tournament, Dad. I can't go to sleep. But they've learned to shut the door and try not to yell and scream after midnight, so it doesn't bother me as much.
Or put headsets on, I take it as well, right? And they're not going to look Yeah, no kidding.
They got the whole thing going. So, Bob, tell us a little bit about your business, a little bit about your team and the families you serve.
So Verl has had an integral part of being with me as a coach and coaching with Verl and for Verl. And we grew our team from just myself and my partners who retired in 2008 and grew it to about 25 agents in 2019. And then at our leverage meeting in Orlando, my son Greg and I had the pleasure of sitting with Verl and his wife and a couple of the people at dinner. And what we talked about was something very unique, and that was, is it really good to grow your team as big as you really wanted, or is there a diminishing return, right? It's like we had this dinner, and it was an interesting night, as I will down the road tell you at another time. But anyway, so it came to me that I was doing this more for ego than anything else, and maybe the profit wasn't there, and Verl proved it wasn't. So we started attrition. We downsized to about 15 at this point, and maybe a couple more who are just stragglers who are not doing their job. We end up saying goodbye to and reintroducing them to the street. But the point is, we're trying to run under these COVID-19 times a lean, mean operating machine and doing the best we can.
Yeah, you have to make some changes. I'll tell you, it's been very interesting. Bob, I've seen a lot of people respond differently to this pandemic. Some have literally, crawled under the sheets and hid and said that, I can't transact or I can't do business. Others have said, hey, how do I do business differently? I'd love to hear what you're doing differently as a team, other than getting lean and mean. I mean, what are you doing differently and how is it affecting you? Are you able to sell houses?
Yeah, well, we can, and we have. And to start with, we took advice that you had been pushing out to all of us as coaches for years, and that was to do a daily huddle. There was an obvious need to continue doing meetings and or huddles. We weren't doing other than one huddle or one team meeting a week. Well, we went to Zoom immediately and could see how important that was. And so we started doing, during the height of the pandemic, we started doing daily 1-hour huddles from 9 to 10 and talked about problems in my agents' lives. We talked about the normal stuff that we would, scripts, dialogues, wins, problems, things like that. I came up with a concept, and a couple of our fellow agents, like Brooke Sines, picked up on this, and that was to also use the opportunity to get to know each of our agents and share each of our agents' history. So I came up with a list, and we shared that on our workman group sites, talking a variety of things. What was your first job? Maybe even your first love. What's your hobbies? What do you like to do in the spare time? Things like that. And it brought, I think, everybody together. Now, come the beginning of June, it looked like we had really moved through the worst of it as things were starting to open. So we scaled back to a Monday and Thursday 1-hour huddle, and with the option of going longer if we needed, or if something happens where everything starts to break again. But during that time, I think what it was important to get to your point is that the agents needed to know that this is not the time to put your head in the sand and hide. I have a friend who calls herself an ostrich, because she puts her head in the sand and hides, and she's trying to change that whole motif, because we have to be aggressive. We have to take the lead. As a team leader, I felt it was my responsibility, my duty, my obligation to all of our agents and our admin to show a positive foot forward, moving us in a forward direction. Even though in my personal life, not to go personal, but in my personal life, I was going through a lot of strife and concerns and problems. So it was a challenge for me, much more than anybody might believe. And I think that hopefully they saw that in me, that if I can move it forward, that they would be able to take that and move it forward. So it's lead by example, and it's not letting yourself get pushed around by some very uncertain circumstances. And if you have been following the news, not only did we have to deal with COVID-19, but then towards the beginning of this month, we also had racial unrest for a variety of reasons, and not to be political, but it's happening everywhere. And all we were trying to do is work through it and not become part of the problem, but find what the solution might be to help our community, is what it really came down to.
I think it's so important. So it's so easy to get into how do you sell more houses, and the answer to that is in your
Yeah.
previous statement. It's to help
Yeah.
our communities. If we help our communities, those opportunities will present themselves anyway. And with all of the social injustice and the things that we're dealing with, I'm actually, I don't know, Bob. For me, I've been, I guess I'm grateful and sad. So I'm grateful that things are brought to our attention, and I hope that this time there's real change that happens as a result to equality. I want to see real change, and I'm sad that it's taken so long for us to be able to respond as a community. And so I'm sad, and I'm grateful, and I'm like really pushing for and hoping for change.
Completely agree. And I have another side of this issue that I have to be aware of, and that is both of my son-in-laws are detectives with the police department. So in addition to personal feelings about what's going on, I also have to respect them and their other fellow compadres within the force. So I'm torn in so many directions, and certainly son Greg feels one way, and then I've got my daughters and their husbands feeling another way. So I'm in the middle of this, but I'm not. It's not like I'm not used to this. So just so you know, with my kids growing up, my oldest went to U of L and my son went to UK. So even then there was divisiveness between the two. So we had, if you know anything about college sports, you understand how difficult that might be for a parent.
Yeah, I think that when you have school alliances, that creates a fun, competitive nature inside the home. When you're dealing with a social issue like the police versus racial injustice in your home, that becomes a very different discussion that cuts to the core. And so, I hope that the police, most of them are good. They're good people. They serve, and they don't get paid a ton of money, and they do a good job. And then there's a few bad apples that just absolutely need to be weeded out, and we need to fix the problem. And I hope that your family gets through it okay, and has a positive outcome, and can continue to serve in the roles that they're in.
Yep. Same here. Yep.
So Bob, let's talk about real estate. So How many homes did you guys sell as a team last year? What do you expect this year?
Approximately 365 homes last year. Of that production, 110 were my actual listing sales. And the way we set up our system and the way I've set up our business is I only work with the sellers. And then I've got my agents who work with buyers who come from those sellers, and then buyers who are coming from the sign calls, and then leads that we generate through pay-per-click and other systems that we use.
I love that. Well, anybody that sells a house a day has got to be listened to. And so I want to talk to you. I want to just make this about a little bit about how you've taken what you've learned in TV broadcasting and journalism and brought that into your real estate business, and how has that impacted you? What have you learned, or what did you bring with you as you brought into real estate that has helped create the level of success that you have?
So a lot of people thought that my last TV job was here in the Louisville area at the ABC affiliate. I co-anchored an entertainment type show. Before that, it was all hard news. 20 years of hard news, 5 years or so of entertainment, and then I also did a radio show here locally. And what was happening was everybody thought, oh, that's going to be an easy transition. People are going to flock to me as a person because of my personality. But what it turned out, it was the most difficult 4 or so first years of a career that you could have. Because think about it. Would you trust your local newscaster to buy and sell or represent you in the largest personal purchase of your life? The answer was no for me. In that you may be a nice guy and you might be a good personality on TV, but when it comes to knowing the ins and out of homes and the like, not so trustworthy. You know, you're not going to do that. So I had to overcome that. I noticed, thanks to the web, I was able to garner a lot of people moving into town. But the real source of what ended up being a lot of my business, the local people, didn't come until I had proven myself and had a pretty good track record. So that came and went and then came. And what I found was I was able to utilize what I learned on TV, being an anchor, being a reporter, doing live, in doing videos on a regular basis. I was ahead of the curve. In fact, bro, do you remember when we first met? It was I thought it was a Remax convention, and you were working for Kodak, weren't you, at the time? And
Yeah, I was launching the ZA8 digital camera, the new handheld digital video camera that Kodak was moving into. I totally remember that. We had, I think, 25 or 30 speakers represented Kodak at that event. We'd got it in all their hands. We had a crazy booth. It was just a lot of fun. And I think what I remember, if you're thinking about what I'm thinking about, Bob, you had a sponge, and you were showing everybody how you mounted your ZA8 camera on your dashboard and then stuck it in a sponge.
something like
So
that,
that you
right?
could talk to people while you were driving down the road and have it be
Yep.
on video. Is that you?
Yeah, it's close to that. I actually used, and you can still do this with a camera. I used double-sided tape,
Yeah.
and the tape sticks to your rear view mirror, and your camera. You don't want to really use an iPhone, but you can use. And this is I'm holding here. This is the 8, the GoPro Hero 8, right there. So you can use this and put it against using Velcro. But more importantly, right now, the best thing to do is to put it on a very inexpensive suction cup. And that now will clip to anywhere in your car. And then one of the things you can do is use an external mic. But it's funny because was that about 10 years ago when we first met, or more, maybe?
Yeah, late 90s.
So I had transitioned in 1994 from doing radio and TV into real estate. And so I was using that, and I was using this Kodak ZI-8. And if you look it up, it's probably in some video archive history museum.
I still have one.
It is a low quality, but it worked. But then things came along, and then one of the things that I ended up going was with the original. This is a Hero 4.
Yeah.
I have just about every Hero out there. I started with the Hero, and then Hero 1 or 2, and then moves up. But I've had each one of these. Then Osmo. Again, I'm giving you kind of a history of video because that's my expertise. Osmo, which is made by DJI, which also makes drones, came out with the Osmo, and this is a 3-axis gimbal when it's turned on and steady as a shot. The problem was it wasn't a wide enough angle, though now you can get a wide angle lens. They later followed that up with the Osmo Pocket. So this is the newer version of what that does. And I think, Brill, you and I talked about this at one time. It may not be charged tonight. Yeah, there it goes. So it holds a stabilized view and you can turn it in. It has a three-axis gimbal as well. So that's useful, but also initially not a wide enough angle for shooting videos of yourself as you're walking through. And so with your permission, let me just transition to why video is so important in my life, and it should be in anybody who's watching our show right now on Facebook Live.
So before you go there, let me just welcome everybody who's joined the call, Bob. We're talking to Bob Sokoler from Louisville, Kentucky, video expert, good friend, a mega team agent that runs a tremendous business. We've got, as you come onto the call, please say hello. You've got people like Paul Sessom and Ron Howard that are saying, Bob's a rock star. Welcome, welcome. We're glad you're all here. Make sure that you say hello and let us know where you're from and ask any questions of Bob. So Bob, tell us why now. So that's the what, now why?
The why. So note that we all, I think, watch TV news. And let's say it could be network, it could be local, it could be cable. But if you watch it enough, you become a friend in your mind of the person you're watching. You can tell that they're going to, especially a weather person or a personality on that station, that you kind of maybe not look up to them, but you consider them a friend. If you were in a restaurant and you see that person, you're more apt to go to that person, just say, hi, I love what you do, than any other person in the restaurant. And so as a broadcaster, I knew that what that meant for me, and the feeling that you get when you meet somebody. You can't turn away, you have to engage, you got to make sure you're present and look them in the eye and be a nice personality there to make sure they don't speak ill of you. So what ended up happening was when I got into real estate, I knew that that was something that I could do, and I knew how to do these videos from TV. So why not work within what I know and do the same thing? Now, the only difference between anybody else watching me right now and me is that I had some broadcast experience, but I learned just like everybody else by trying and experimenting. And we all, just to say, you don't have to have a big budget to do this. If you have a smartphone, you got enough in front of you. And there are may I give a couple of tips here, Verl, to people who are doing? Okay. Yeah. The best camera that you own is the one you use. So note, it does not take brain science here to get this working. If you do any sort of Facebook or FaceTime somebody, you can do your own video. And what I always tell my agents, and we've trained on this, and we talk about this, is when you're doing a video, and I'm going to kind of show this to you. So here is my camera. Obviously, I'm in my own office at work, but I've got studio lighting in here. But a couple of things you want to do is always have the light source in front of you, not being blocked by your phone, but in front or from the side, so you're lit properly. I am cursed, or some would say blessed, with a youthful face. It's not quite as youthful as it was as I turned 65 this past Sunday, but I was cursed to me with a double chin, or always having extra skin down here. So I've always said, and it doesn't matter if you are thin or thicker, older or younger, if you hold the phone, and I'm hoping you can see this, if you're holding it above your face, not equal and not below, but just a little bit above. I've got a monitor here blocking our little thing. Okay. So you can see just a little bit above.
Yep.
You're now smoothing out the lines of your face. If you're a lady and you're always conscious about wrinkles, doing this will smooth out some of the lines to make you look younger. If you're a little heavier like I am and have a little bit of a pouch here, by pushing up a little bit, you're now smoothing this out as well, making you look thinner.
Oh, yeah, Bob, it's funny as you're talking right there. I find myself going like this.
Yes, I saw that. I did see that.
I'm leaning into it. I'm stretching it out. I'm not saying I'm thick. I'm just saying that I could use some smoothing out.
We all can. Listen, I don't know anybody who, except Paul Sessions. He's very thin. So
right.
So those are some key things. And then what I would tell you to do is to practice. And all you need to do, if you're answering an inquiry via whatever source that's coming in and sending a text, and you can use BombBomb, and I love the guys over there. There are other sources as well, but you can also just, for free, use your camera on your phone and send a less than 30-second video to them. So let's say it's Verl. We're sending Verl just signed up on a site. So I would go something like this. Hey, Verl, thanks for signing up. This is Bob Sokoler, Sokoler Team, Remax Properties, East Louisville. I just noticed that you signed on our site and that you're looking for a home. I'd love to help you. If you'd like, just let me know and I will call you instantly. You can reach me anytime at 376-5483, 502-376-5483. Thanks again. Hope to talk to you soon. Bye. So, a couple of things I did there. One, I tried to be happy, smiling, energetic, but not overly obnoxious. Two, what I would tell you to do is before you send that, play it back with the sound down. And if you're not sure, ask somebody to watch you with the sound down. What you're looking for is if someone's seeing your face and not hearing your face or hearing what you're saying, will they interpret that you're smiling or a happy person? If you're not being perceived as someone who's happy, go lucky, enjoying life or enjoying what they do it again. Don't ever feel you got to dress up in a sport jacket or a nice coat or a tie. I will tell you, agents win buyers all the time by communicating wherever they are, other than a bathroom, wherever they are, taking a few minutes to send that video, less than 30 seconds, because less compression on a text, it will be better for you. If you're sending it by email, anything over 30 seconds typically will get bounced because of the size of the video file. So usually 30 seconds or less.
I really like that. When people start talking about video, Bob, they quickly go into production video, like, you know, creating videos for clients or virtual tours of homes.
Yeah.
You started with lead conversion. Hey, you saw you went on my site. I just want to let you know I'm here if you need me. Thought you might put a name with a face. Here's my number. I love that. And you said the number twice. Was that strategic or accidental?
Strategic, always. And then also one of the things you could have added is this really is a person behind the voice and the name. I'm a real person. You could add that as well. I just went one route, but there's so many scripts. One of the things that I carry with me almost all the time, besides my phone when I'm traveling, and Girl knows I travel a lot, is a little camera. And I mean, I have different incarnations. This was the one I was using up until fairly recently. It was a Canon, was a EOS 6. But then the Sony RX7, 100 RX 107 came out, and even though the lens is not as wide as I'd like it to be, it's a point and shoot and does phenomenal 4K video. And then Sony just came out with this little adapter. I'm showing off some technology as we go here. See how we're doing it. So this is really cool. It's about 120, 150 bucks. And it will screw into the bottom of my camera, Bluetooth connect, and it will allow me to hold the camera out a little further than normal, because remember I said it didn't have a wide angle lens as much as I like, but I can now position it further out, point it back at me, and I can remote start and stop, zoom in as well if I'm shooting video or taking photos. And one of the cool things, again, I don't own stock in Sony. I don't really care about the brand, though I care about what the brand does. One of the really cool things that I found on this, the RX 100 Mark 7, is a smile release. Get a load of this. When it's set in its proper mode, if you're on vacation with your family, you know how you all got to wait for the timer to go off or something like that? Verl, you know that because you're on vacation all the time with the kids, right? So, and with the grandkids. So in this one, you count to 3, but everybody smiles. And the moment it detects a face with a smile, it shoots a picture, which is so cool. Now, you have to coordinate this because if you're in a large group, I traveled overseas to Europe and Scotland and Ireland this past September. And by the way, that's why I missed the coaching session back in September. You know that, right? And this is a true story. I really did. And so I was with a great group of friends, and I would count to 3. We'd all smile, and it would take a picture. We didn't have to wait for a countdown timer, and it was just spectacular. And some of the people weren't listening to my counting, so some of the faces weren't smiling, so we'd have to redo it. But it's a really cool little thing that's not very much advertised on this camera that I think is great for anybody who is thinking about traveling and want to be able to do video blogging, to talk about where you are, and then you lead into statistics and information about what's happening in your hometown. And understand that the backdrop is important. For me, I did a report from Stonehenge, which I always wanted to go to. So this was one of those dream come true trips that ended up going to. But I talked about and had statistics about the Louisville and Southern Indiana market. So people, even though I wasn't here, knew that I was still engaged in what was going on here. And so I had the backdrop of Stonehenge, but the information, it was kind of made for a neat little story.
It's on my list of places I want to go.
You
So
do.
you talked about using it for lead conversion. You briefly talked about a video blog and talking about your community and doing market statistics from wherever you are.
Mhm.
What are some other applications of how you use video in your business? I mean, really use it.
When I did TV, and this is going to kind of not be a surprise to a lot of people, but what always seemed to gravitate, even when I was doing hard news, I would gravitate to doing stories on real estate.
Hmm.
And whether it was the construction, anything like that. And that's why I ended up getting into real estate when I got into TV and radio. And by the way, I still do a Sunday morning radio show on 840 WHAS from 8:30 to 9 a.m. Eastern on real estate. But I also know, and from my TV world, that one of the more popular segments that I ever did was on dining out, eating. We all eat. We all, at least I think, well, looking at me, you'll know, love to eat. And so if a new restaurant opens up, one of the best places you can go, and you can do this with your iPhone. You don't need an expensive phone. You can do this rather simply. And by you hold the phone, hey, I'm here at Verl's Restaurant. This is a great place located at 123 Main Street. Let me show you what's on the menu. Let's take a look at some of the food. Here are the prices, and taste a piece of the food while you're on camera. You got to try this place, brand new, just open, and ask for Verl, the owner, when you come in, and he'll take care of you. And of course, you want to get the permission of Verl to promote it that way. But look, if he starts getting people who said, oh, Bob said to Verl to come in and try your restaurant. So this is going to do a couple of things. One, this guy Verl now is going to love the fact that you did this for him because he's a new restaurant. And maybe somebody comes along who's looking for a house, and Verl, you leave cards with Verl, and Verl says, hey, listen, let me have you call my buddy Bob. On the other hand, you've got other people who are living in town who are now getting to know Verl. And because he's a good guy and they had a good experience, they're going to be thinking about you when it comes to possibly looking for real estate. You know, I remember this guy, Bob, who did this thing on Verl that we love this restaurant. Maybe I'll call him. There are no guarantees in life, but the goal is to sway the odds towards you, sway them towards you enough so that if you do this enough and you get enough people thinking positive about you, the business does come.
So it's interesting that you're highlighting other businesses and giving them some exposure to the marketplace, and by doing so, it gives you exposure. It's kind of a cool thing.
It is a cool thing, yeah.
What do you do with video on homes that you list? Does your listings look better online than others?
You're asking, I've got a personal interest in this. Yes, I do have. I think we look better.
Well, I loaded that for you.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm being very upfront about this. So let me tell you, back in I want to say 2008, 9, and 10, we started doing videos. First, we started with stills, animating stills, and then moving them into videos. We were able to brand them at the time. But here's the thing that I thought was rather unfortunate, not much I could do about this, is that a couple of other brokerages complained to our board that I was unfairly putting videos out there that were branded with my name because it was appearing on their websites and on their feed. Now, we could spend an hour discussing and debating this. Should an agent be penalized because he's ahead of the curve? You know where I'm coming from on this, but the board ruled that no branding. So we had to create. We went to Vimeo, which is another like YouTube, but you're able to post videos without branding at all, without having a redirect. So I ended up doing that. And so we do videos and we do these 3D Matterport tours. I was an early adapter. I bought the first Matterport. Then I bought the second one as well. So it's twice as fast. And especially with COVID, this has become an amazing selling point for us because we're able to give our sellers a video and a 3D tour, sending a potential buyer to that location to see it before they ever get to the house, which of course saves any potential problems with exposing the house to COVID. So that was a big plus, and the videos are a big plus. And I will tell you, I have dear clients. I'll just use her first name, Tammy, who reached out to me. We would upload our videos to realtor.com. Again, this is going back 10 or so years ago. And she called me out of the blue, did not know her. And she called, Bob, I watched what you've done on realtor.com and I want you as my realtor. That was it. I didn't have to do a listing presentation, just based on my marketing using videos to go through homes. She we went there, we signed the paperwork that day, put the house on the market, video, sold it. She moved out of town because her husband was with a national company, and then they moved back to town. Well, they called me, so we did that. They just moved again. I just sold their home that they bought, and they moved to another home. So this is not just a one-shot deal. Once you create a, and I don't have to tell our people who are watching, once you've got a client that interacts with you, that likes what you do, gets what you do, you've got a client for life. But it all started for me with this client, and there have been others, but this is just one in particular, where they were able to see what we do via video on the web. It was the least expensive marketing that you could ever do, because it cost me, other than putting it up on my realtor.com feed and being held upside down by realtor.com until the money comes out for inbound leads, this was a freebie that I got.
Isn't that nice to get one of those once in a while? I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
So it's funny, as you talked about Matterport. I've been watching Matterport and the adoption they've had nationwide since COVID. I've seen more and more properties with it. And Matterport's basically it's a virtual walkthrough of a home that allows people to walk through a floor plan and see the photography and have areas highlighted in the home. You were an early adopter of that. It's become less of an unfair competitive advantage because you're seeing more and more of it. What are some other things you're doing? Are you using drone photography at all? Are you doing any drone stuff?
Well, I hope the answer to that. But by the way, let's back up to Matterport for a second. And that is, the key thing I want to make everyone aware of. For those of you who don't know, with Workman Systems, it's all about automating things so that you can do more with less of your own time. And so we set up a system where one of my agent's sons became the Matterport expert on this. And so he has the gear, a tripod, the Matterport camera, and an iPad, and we automatically send them out. My assistant sends out when we have a new listing. So that's all automated. So, Verl, I don't know that you actually know this much, but if you check the FAA dossier, the register, and you look up my name, you will most likely find that I was the second realtor in the country to be licensed to do real estate photography from a drone.
Really?
And this happened, it was rather unusual. We were all talking about it, and a bunch of friends. And I read on one of the feeds, and I don't know if it was Riz Media, I don't know where I read it, but this guy had successfully received license to fly a drone for commercial photography, for real estate. I called the guy, nice enough to say, yeah, if you go online, you can download what I sent. So I went online, downloaded his app, and then reverse engineered it so that I actually was able to create an app with my answers, or application with my answers, sent it to the FAA, and I was approved about a month later. So I became the second person in the country to do this for real estate. So I was proud. And now we've transitioned. My first drone, just so you know, was one that was made in China. It was nothing like what we see now. Everything was kind of a strap-on, add-on. And I would say this is probably going back 8 years ago. So very difficult to fly. But then we had DJI come along with the Phantom series, and now Maverick. And there's so many others now. There's the two. And so my son Greg, who does all our photography, and I'm incredibly blessed to have him with me, because he's also my exit plan down the road when I want to leave the business or go really part-time, and he'll take over. He does a phenomenal job on drone photography, and probably he's 32, and probably one of the most endearing things that I love about this is he takes it so seriously, is that he wants it to be a perfect job, not just a good job. And so he's developed workflows for shooting and using Photoshop, and then also for drone photography. So, and I will tell you that Verl's kids are also in his business, and there are challenges, as we both know, but it is a rewarding experience to know that not only are your kids with you, understand what you do, and are learning, and that there's a future for them if they so choose in the business. And so you feel that not only are you teaching or giving somebody a fish to eat for a day, but you're teaching them how to fish for themselves and for their life. I think you would agree with me on that, right?
Yeah, so actually, I was just thinking that my son Nate needs to get drone lessons from your son Greg.
Listen,
We only fly our zones like behind the boat when we're pulling wakeboarders, and we want to get good shots of them jumping. And Nate's figured out how to do it, get it to follow him, and do all these cool things with that Mavic too.
well, if you want, we can.
Thing.
Well, if you want to bring Greg out for our next meeting, we'll fly out and he can teach Nate as long as you want. That'd be good.
That'd be fun. I don't think we get much work done. They'd want to do it on mountain bikes and four wheelers.
This is true. This is very true. Yep. Good. Well,
that's really fun. Just out of curiosity, how much more important has the videography, the Matterports, the video stuff that you were doing, the things? How much has it impacted your business during this COVID-19 situation and all this stuff that's going on in the world? Has it made it? Can you notice the difference?
Yeah, it's a tremendous difference because I still do all my own listing presentations, and my agents are allowed to do a couple of lists as well. That's not a problem. But with regards to the listing presentation, one of the things that we continually, even today, I was at a listing this morning and I'm wearing a mask because of COVID guidelines. And so I always present the fact that our goal is to make sure that this home is safe during the selling process, and it has to have a meaning to them. And by that, by showing them the 3D tour and by showing them the videos or the pictures and telling them we drive our potential buyers, which we do, to the sites to get that information before they make an appointment to go see the home. It gives them another level of reassurance, which I'm hoping maybe the next agent or the agent before me didn't have on their plate to be able to offer to the seller. So we have, and if anybody wants to check, Louisville3D.com. So it's Louisville, the number 3, and then the letter D.com. And that's a holding station where I can send anybody, including anybody watching, can go and see some of the 3D videos that we've done. And there's also, I think I put an application if you want to get in contact with me to fill out and send it to me as well, so it reaches out to me. So yes, it's made an important point of helping our business. I think all of us who are on this Facebook Live watching and participating, I think we're all probably very concerned about the resurgence and seeing the hotspots that are coming up around the country. And I've got my fingers crossed that it's isolated and it's not going to continue as bad as some may say. But we're still not out of the woods. I think we can all agree about that.
I think we need to be safe. And it's really important to me as I listen to you that I hear how you take the client's needs to feel safe at a really high level. You're not just doing it because, you're supposed to. You're actually thinking about, how do I help you feel safe in the selling process? I'm driving people by before we come in. You're wearing a mask during the listing. We're going to use video photography, probably doing virtual. Are you doing virtual open houses?
Yeah, we did that. And we have, I'll give a plug to 2 of my agents, Karen Benabu and Scotty Dooley. And if you look up Karen Benabu or Scotty Dooley, they do these Facebook Live. They're a hoot. And so what they're doing is basically a virtual walking through homes. Now they're trying only to do vacant homes that we have listed, because they don't want to impose themselves or even subject themselves to catching the virus. They are this weekend, this coming Saturday, they're doing a Facebook Live from one of our newer listings, combined homes, a 1.4 mil, and they'll do, it's a song and dance, just an extremely entertaining Facebook Live virtual tour. We did a virtual open house a couple of weeks ago, and I'll tell you, our board had curtailed, and maybe other boards have as well, they curtailed their ability to promote the virtual open house. It's kind of opened up now, but they at the time were not allowing us to advertise a virtual open house, which limited the number of people who are going to attend it or attended it. And so what we tried was doing a Facebook Live promoting. In fact, some of our workman coaches joined us on this Facebook Live promoting our virtual house, which brought them to the virtual open house. It was kind of fun. Local TV station did a story on us. And in that alone, it was worth the time and energy to put into it because we got publicity that did not cost us a penny, which was good.
So Paul Sessom asked a question on the chat, which I think is a great question. And he's right on the money. He wants to know, how do you maintain such a high level of energy, enthusiasm, and optimism with all of the stuff going on in the world and in your life and everything else? And I feel the same way, Bob. Every time I talk to you, and I know that you have stuff going on, you just are so positive all the time. How do you maintain that optimism?
Listen, and Verl knows what I'm going through, and someday it'll all be out, but right now I'm not talking about it. But I think it's all about putting one foot in front of the other. And truthfully, if I'm going to be very honest, I really can't take the credit for it. I think I credit my dad, who passed away in 2016, December of 2016. And he was, I got from my mother, I got this love of life, of nature. But for my dad, it's a work acumen of putting one foot in front of the other, putting your head down and going forward and doing it and getting the job done. And I so miss him, as many who have lost their parents do. But I would tell you, it comes from somewhere, and so short of making something up, the only thing I can tell you is that it has to come from our parents instilling it in us in whatever form that they did. I attribute it to them, and thank you, Paul, for that, and thank you, Verl. But I would hope it's contagious to everybody. We all need to just get moving forward and enjoy life, because the alternative is not so good, right?
It's absolutely contagious.
Yeah.
And what a great tribute to your dad this Father's Day week. Father's Day being Sunday. I thought about my dad, who passed several years ago, and thinking about your dad, I think that our dads would have been friends.
I agree. Yeah, you better believe it.
So, Bob, just last question for you, and before we wrap this up, if you were to give any agent or any consumer who's thinking about hiring a realtor any advice on what are 2 or 3 things that must happen in a real estate business today in relationship to using the latest technology, what are the non-negotiables for you?
I would tell any agent that pictures are number one, that they cannot be done, the pictures, with an iPhone. It's just not the best quality. They need to be high end, and you don't have to necessarily have to hire an expert. You just have to know how to shoot them. And there's so many video tutorials on YouTube. I would dare say, Mr. Workman, is that we should do a training session at one of the leverages on how to shoot better pictures if you're doing it yourself or teaching your team. Think about that for our next leverage get together. Yeah. But I think that is such a small investment. Let me give you if we have a moment, let me give you a true story that happened probably 10 years ago. I was shooting at the time. I was using a Nikon. It was a D600D, D600. It was a decent camera, probably about 4,000 or 5,000. The lens was a wide angle, 12 to 24, typical is what it was, and another 3,000 for that. So I'm using about 8,000 in gear, and I was shooting. This was before my son Greg joined us. And for background, I was married 41 years. My wife passed away after cancer bout with breast cancer. She passed away in the beginning of 2016. So when she became ill in 2013, he came back to join me and help. He was up in New York with Best Buys as a manager up there. So he came back. But up until then, I was shooting these pictures all myself. So I had always loved photography. The story goes that one of the fellow agents here at Remax had come up to talk to me, and I never mind sharing what we do, but wanted to shoot pictures like me. And I said, well, you don't have to buy the higher end gear, but this is what I'm using. And I explained in detail what I'm using. And then she said, oh, that's way too much money. I was thinking of spending $200 or $300. And I think what I learned from that is that so many agents have this picture of, well, we can just throw some pictures up there on the web. It doesn't really matter. But truthfully, for those of us who do the job and get it done, it's the first foot forward. It's the foot in the door to show the buyer how great this house is. And if the pictures don't look like they could be in a magazine, you're doing your sellers a disservice. And I think it comes back to you in so many ways. If, for example, you're shooting the picture, the quality is good, not only does the seller appreciate it, but you'll get the buyers are going to appreciate it. But then you'll also get more sellers, because as the story I told with Tammy a couple of hours ago, minutes ago, about what we did with the video, they come to you because they realize what you do. And you definitely need to try to continue to push the envelope, to do better than your fellow realtors, so that you become the leader, not the follower, in shooting photography. So that's the first step. Video is so important. And if you don't know, I will tell you probably the best thing you could do is, and I'm a Mac user, but I'm also a PC user, but I would tell you that it would be very easy if you have the money. And again, some people don't, but you can go into a Mac store and buy not a high-end MacBook, but a decent MacBook, and then buy their one-on-one training. And it still should be in existence, $99 for the year. And then they will train you on any software that you buy. Now, I edit on Final Cut, which probably, Virl, your guys in your video department are using Final Cut. Maybe they're using Adobe, but I was born and raised on Final Cut, first 7 and now 10 for years. And they will teach you how to use it. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to use Final Cut with some basic steps. And once you get hooked, you're done. You cannot get away from it, because if you like to create, in the world of maybe painting or photography or video, whatever, if you're creative at all, this gives you such a wide open area of expertise to enjoy, create something that people are going to see, and help your clients at the same time. It's a win-win all the way around. And coming from the TV world, where my first TV job, believe it or not, Flint, Michigan, it was 1978 or 79. Not only did I shoot film, I processed the film and edited the film, and I was a reporter on it. And just so you know, here's how we did a stand-up back then. So that stand-up is when you stand in front of a camera and you speak to the camera. It's called a stand-up. So on weekends, I was a one-man band, which that means I shot and I was the reporter. So we would set up the camera, the CP16, which was a 16 millimeter film camera, would go on a tripod. You'd use another light stand to approximate where you will stand and at your height. You'd frame that CP16 in the viewfinder to include your head and make sure you get a little headroom. And then you'd turn it on. You turn it on. You'd stand where the light stand is, toss that out of the way, and then you do your stand-up. But it was such good training from back then to now. So we've come such a long way, because now we can do so much with such little gear and give better quality than anybody ever could. And we're seeing video, as you've seen on TV on a regular basis, whether good or bad, that cameras this small and smaller are creating some spectacular views and pictures and video. We're who can imagine what's going to happen in the future? That's all I can tell you.
It's going to be exciting to see, and I'm going to continue to watch you. Hey, Bob, give me the website again where people can go see some of your work. They can see some of the houses you shoot, the things you're using.
So our main website is WeSellLouisville.com. You can go to Louisville3D, that's the number 3, the letter D.com, to see some of the stuff. If you want to see, and we never even touched this, Virl, but I'm going to real quickly. Let's see what time. We got a couple of seconds. So if you are at a closing, your clients are the happiest they will ever be, because they now own their home. So take a camera. I always suggest, here is it. I always suggest, and you can buy these on Amazon using an external microphone. In fact, there are microphones now. There's 2 that combine into one. There's an extension that you need to buy for if it's a GoPro camera. You have to understand what the tip and ring look like at the front of the plug.
Yep.
That's a whole other show. But once you do it, you interview the clients at the closing. Go to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. Again, LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. That's a redirect to my YouTube channel that's set up for just interviews with sellers as we were closing on their home. I have another one that I haven't done much because I haven't done buyers lately, is LouisvilleBuyersTalk.com. So you create, and again, we could do an hour or more on just how to set up things in your own market to make it easier for people to find you with redirects, how to use YouTube to its best advantages, and how to become the leader of video in your market. And I think it would be a helpful thing for a lot of people. And I'm more than happy to jump on board anytime you ask me to.
Careful what you ask for, Bob, because I'll take advantage of it. I love,
I mean it. I would not offer it unless I mean it. I love you, and I love everyone at Workman. I'm more than willing to help you anytime you want it.
Bob, thank you so much for being our guest today. I really appreciate you. What a wealth of information. Bernie Tim says to tell you hello. My cousin Walter Note says, hey, what's up? There's just a lot of great people on the call today. We thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. We wish you continued success as you continue to serve and make a difference in the lives of so many people, Bob. Thanks for being one of the givers and being part of our Workman family.
I love you, Verl, and you take care. Everybody watching, thank you for watching.
Thanks, everybody.